Good day, everybody. Thank you for joining me on the channel. In today's XRP content, we dive into the 12-month accumulation range and what it could mean for price action. Do stay tuned. Nothing that I say is financial advice. Let's dive into the content. So in regards to the 12-month accumulation, what I'm speaking about here is since the sort of high in January 2025, XRP has been in a large accumulation range where we have a level of multi-month resistance and a level of multi-month support, as of which last week XRP actually revisited this area, which sits between $1.80 and the lowest candle closes sit around $1.92. Now, as of last week, within this sort of range, XRP has seen a bounce in the area of similar lows that were formed in June 2025. So there's a few ways that I'm actually looking at this accumulation phase. Okay, and one of them is a Wyckoff reaccumulation or vertical accumulation, where you have a massive uptrend that leads into this consolidation range before looking for continuation higher. So a few things to consider before we actually get into the accumulation phases and the distinct features. One or some of the technical indications for bullish continuation here that XRP is indicating is one, we have a 20-month EMA support retest, which is where XRP on the monthly time frame has actually, for the first time since breaking above this yellow line in November 2024, we had this massive impulsive move, and for the last 12 months, it's finally brought XRP back down to this key moving average, which signals a significant, strong uptrend. So being above this moving average on the monthly time frame, the larger time frames, is a good signal. This is one of the indications of having a healthy retest after 12 months of sideways price action. Secondly, we have the mid-Gaussian channel retest complete. So on the weekly time frame, within price action cluster and accumulation, XRP is also, whilst testing its 20-month EMA, has found support in the short term on the mid-regression band of the Gaussian channel. Now, this sits roughly at about $2.10 currently. And again, since we actually broke out in November 2024, this is the first time that we've had XRP actually come down and place a candle close on this regression band. So this could act as a very strong area of support for XRP in the near short term. Thirdly, we have a bullish weekly super trend, which is intact. So if I take off the Gaussian channel, in fact, we'll keep it on. No, we'll get it off. We'll get it off. It makes it a bit clearer. So thirdly, we also have this green super trend line, which indicates a bullish structure. When you are above the green line, this indicates a strong uptrend. When you are below the green line or underneath a red line, this indicates a downtrend. Now, you can see in the past, historically for XRP, it had this major level of resistance, roughly around 64 cents. In this sort of trend that it was struggling to break out of, we initially got a bullish trend flip into the green territory, and this is where we saw the explosion. Now, since the explosion in November, again, some confluence here because XRP has been retracing back down to this super trend for several months during this accumulation phase. So at the moment, we're literally just going through the bullish technical indications within this 12-month accumulation and what it could mean for price action if we hold above the $1.90 multi-month base. Fourthly, should I say, we have a weekly stock RSI, which is oversold, okay? And these are the typical areas that XRP likes to see a bounce. So within the 12-month accumulation range, there's been 2 times. This is only the second time in history, do forgive me, within this 12-month accumulation range, the XRP has actually created a golden cross. Okay, so as of this week, XRP has printed a golden cross on its weekly stock RSI. The last time this signal printed was back in April 2025, which, believe it or not, was actually where the local low was placed. Okay, so when we actually formed the golden cross, in fact, it was a week later after placing the low. So very similarly to what we've done here. Last week, we placed the local low at $1.80, which was pretty much near enough identical to the lows of April. And within doing so, a week later, we formed a golden cross. So this is a good signal. Okay, it shows oversold. It shows we've got a bullish momentum because of the cross and being in this sort of territory. And last time the signal printed, XRP placed that local low roughly around $1.63, and it ran up to $3.60 in a 128% move. So if history is to repeat, and we've just had this low, a 128% move from these sort of lows that we've just had would roughly put XRP near $4. Okay, again, that doesn't have to happen. I'm just showing you the signals. And again, being down in this sort of territory in a 12-month accumulation phase does normally mean we could see some relief in the short term. Now, again, XRP is up around, I think it's about 22% in the last, it might even be a bit more than that now, actually. I think it's up around, about 22% in the last sort of 4 to 5 days. So, we are seeing some relief. However, there are also indications that we need to see, XRP hold in order to validate all of this bullish potential and this setup that I'm actually showing you here. So again, just keep in mind, we've got several indications or indicators, should I say, that are pointing towards continuation to the upside in a reaccumulation, okay, which is where you have a massive uptrend, you accumulate for 12 months, we have a range between resistance and support, and inside all of it, it looks choppy, but we've seen multiple points of contact in this sort of $1.90, $1.80 area over the past year, and it continues to hold. So there is no final definitive case for bulls until we break the resistance, which currently sits at $3.50. And there's no definitive case for bears unless we start closing below $1.90/80. So at this moment in time, XRP still remains range bound. I've just gone through all of the bullish indications. And I just wanted to, again, recap on the characteristics of reaccumulation or vertical accumulation. It's a rest stop for the market and generally involves the following characteristics. So a prior uptrend. So a clear and often significant uptrend must be in place before the pattern begins. Looking at XRP, we had a massive clear uptrend before this accumulation zone. We also have a trading range. Okay, so the price moves sideways in a range as supply and demand reach a temporary equilibrium. The period of consolidation allows large institutional buyers to add to their positions without causing a major price spike. So institutions at these levels, okay, where the equilibrium is between resistance and support in the TR, in the trading range, which is between the resistance and the support for the last 12 months, is allowing institutions to actually get themselves involved, okay, without significantly causing a price surge. So if you tie that up with ETFs and all this bullish news and acquisitions over the last year, in my books, it looks like this is the perfect time for the institutions to load up, especially when most people are fearful. There's been 12 months. In fact, it's been about, if we go from the all-time high, it's been about roughly sort of 140 days. Okay, but in general, the accumulation phase has taken nearly 12 months. So, the characteristics do line up. We have a trading range. We came in from a prior uptrend. We have ETFs and large institutional movements going on at the moment. We also have the potential absorption of shares. So the core of reaccumulation is the absorption of available stock from weaker hands. So this is where, people are sort of fading XRP. They doubt it's going to continue. And those sellers are going into buyers' hands, the long-term long-term holders from some sort of perspective. We also have volume clues. So volume analysis. The pattern often begins with an acceleration of the uptrend into a buying climax, okay, followed by an automatic reaction that sets the initial boundaries of the trading range. So what it means by a climax here, a buyer's climax, is this BCLX, okay, where we have a massive uptrend. We run into resistance, come back, create some sort of higher high in an ST, and then range bound before initially jumping across the creek and continuing the trend. So this is a conventional labeling of Wyckoff reaccumulation trading range, and I believe is one of the potentials XRP is in. So if you look at the BCLX here, the buying climax, okay, this would be this sort of move here, for example. Okay, this would be where the BCLX is for XRP if this is a reaccumulation phase. Okay, you've got the BCLX, the buying climax, and then what tends to happen after is you come back in for an AR, an ST, which could be classed as a lower high. I mean, you could look at this as the BCLX, and then this right here as the S sort of T, not STR. We just want. So again, I'm just giving you guys a rough sort of breakdown here, and then you come back to support, okay, which is the 12-month accumulation support that XRP has been in, and you can see we've got this support, the support, the support, and then from that phase onwards, you start sort of chopping. Retest resistance for a second to third time, and again we've got 1, 2, 3. This would be the third point of contact on resistance. Come back to support, and then on the accumulation you come back to support, and this is potentially where we start to see a jump across the creek. Okay, so you've got multiple support levels, you're caught between resistance, you have a buying climax, an ST, consolidate, and then jump across the creek to break out. So you know, we've got something very similar in price action. We've got the buyer's climax, the ST, come back to support, run up into resistance, come back to support. And this is where we could initially be in some sort of phase where we're about to jump across the creek. And if we do get a vertical move up to resistance, okay, which is actually the vertical resistance up here at $3.50, then this would be a good sign. And again, XRP, if doing so, would also be breaking through this descending level of resistance, very similarly to the level of resistance it had in the past correction, where it corrected from sort of January 2025 into April, and then it built this double bottom and broke out. So XRP at the moment has the potential here to maybe run up to ascending resistance, pull back for a higher low, and then initially get the spring to break out, and this would confirm the jump across the creek and the breakout of this reaccumulation trading range. Okay, so it typically, again, it's a pause in an uptrend. It's an ownership the ownership is strengthened, and the cause builds for a new uptrend. So it's literally looking like this is one of the larger potentials. Now, of course, we do have another potential that I wanted to cover today, a few more, in fact, and these are different types of Wyckoff accumulations. This is a cheat sheet, and I do believe that XRP is currently in reaccumulation with breakout or reaccumulation after shakeout. And after the shakeout, this exhibits bullish strength. So you'll see that we come up into resistance, we sort of hover around support, run up into resistance again, pull back, and then break out. Okay, this is extremely strong support, which in XRP's case would be roughly in this $1.80, $1.90 region, which we visited in the last couple of weeks. So this is one of the cases, again, in a reaccumulation, and this is a reaccumulation with a breakout. So even if we do see the potential of XRP sort of lose this level of support and actually sweep below, which we have seen in a couple of instances, i.e. the wick from the 6th of October, and also the wick from sort of March, April 2025. So there have been some instances where we have actually seen deviation below the support. But there still is the potential for XRP to actually run into this resistance one more time, actually sweep below with some candle closes, and then get a massive recovery. Okay, so actually filling in more of this wick. This is a potential here, and it's not to be ignored, okay? And that would be a breakout of support with reverse pattern, or a break of resistance. So you're actually losing the current support, hit your heads on it, build a double bottom, and then go for a vertical break. And this obviously starts with a few lower highs and lower lows over time. And with XRP, we don't really have the lower low structure, so to speak, in regards to candle closes, but we do have these higher lows, and since the all-time high, lower lows actually forming. So there's a couple of arguments that we could look at here. I'm just trying to show you the examples of the accumulation phases. Now, I've shown you the bullish. Let's have a look at some of the bearish examples here. Now, this could be a Wyckoff distribution phase, right? Where XRP came from a prior accumulation. So if we zoom out and look at XRP here, this is where we had a prior accumulation range for such a long period of time. And then we actually got the breakout. Okay, so what we're looking at here is we had the accumulation phase, you know, from 2023 leading into late 2024. We then had the markup, and right now this has the potential to be a distribution phase. So we have accumulation, a massive markup, and then it looks like you get this double top, and then you eventually lose the volume and start losing support and breaking down. So this is where XRP also has the potential, if we fail to actually to hold this accumulation base and XRP does start rolling over and hitting its head on it, then this is where things could get a little bit ugly and we could start the distribution. So we had the accumulation, the markup, and now this is the distribution phase where there's a potential double top and XRP rolls over back down to find a key level of support. So that is also a potential here that we need to sort of look at and consider. And that would entail a climax and a failed rally. But the only difference I'm seeing here, again on the buyer's climax and the failed rally, is that this rally here was actually a new all-time high. So this wasn't a failed rally because we actually took out the prior high. So there is some differences here, and it doesn't look 100% effective in all instances. But again, I don't think it should be ignored. And this would be the bearish case. And to validate it, we would see candle closes below the lowest candle closes in this accumulation range of around $1.90. So if XRP starts having multiple closes below $1.90 and initially loses, let's say it runs up into resistance and loses this support and hits its head on it, then this is not a good sign. Okay, if we lose the support and hit our heads on the support that we were holding, then this would say that XRP is likely to experience some sort of really deep correction before initially getting the reset and setting up back to those higher targets. So, you know, there's arguments for bulls and there's arguments for bears at the moment. I think the short-term price action is healthy to see. We are bouncing off a key level of accumulation support that we've been holding for the last 12 months as we've been looking at. You know, XRP is still in this range until either resistance is broken and XRP actually comes up and takes this resistance out, or until support is lost. A decision cannot be made yet. Okay, we are still in this accumulation. So I get it. It's great to have short-term relief and to see the bounce here, but we do need to see further signals to indicate that we are looking to continue this uptrend and not drop any further. Now, on the weekly time frame, XRP is currently running into its EMAs right now. Okay, so on the weekly, these are some of the bearish factors. We have lost the 55 and the 20 EMA. In the prior correction where XRP found a bounce in April, it actually wicked to the 55 or close to it and then held and actually went for another rally. This time around during this correction, we've lost the EMAs and are now running into them as resistance. So the key moving averages are what we need to see XR break here in the immediate short term, which sit between $2.27 and $2.50. So we need to see XRP get back above these moving averages that were initially lost over the last couple of weeks. And you could see that what we did here, or on the large liquidation event, we lost the 20, found support on the 55, but then ran into the 20 and saw rejection. Okay, so we actually failed to reclaim the 20-week EMA. And since doing so, this is why we saw a relatively strong push down to fill in a large percentage of this wick, and we lost the 55 EMA. Okay, so this is where we initially started losing the 55. Now, since losing the 55, we've now seen a rally into it. And the likelihood of actually turning this into resistance does remain on the cards, very similarly to what we did with the 20 EMA. So we lost the 20, rallied back into it, rejected. We've lost the 55, we're rallying back into it. The potential here to actually sort of come up and reject is still on the cards. Okay, so what we need to see, again, on the weekly time frame, if this is, you know, XRP has placed its local low, I still think the potential remains to actually sort of build a base in this sort of area, come back for a higher low, and then try to essentially break out of the woods. This would be a bullish case, building some sort of higher low structure and getting really tight here in between some sort of compressive triangle before initially getting the break. Now, what we want to see is a formation to confirm a low. Like back here in this correction, when XRP went from sort of $3.40 back down to $1.60, when it actually had that wick that marked the low, we had to come up and build a double bottom structure. Okay, so we had the low, we then ran up into resistance, came back for a higher low and broke out. This was the double bottom that confirmed a breakout to higher targets. Right now, what it looks like is we've got one of the lows and potentially we're trying to come up and then it could come back into a double bottom again and break out. So this would be a literal rinse repeat scenario, very similarly to where we had a correction, run into resistance, pulled back, broke out. We've had a correction, run into resistance, pull back, break out. So essentially we need to get back above these moving averages. Okay, that's as simple as it can be put. And again, this trading range, this reaccumulation range, or this distribution phase is still not had any confirmation of a loss of structure or a break of resistance. So we just sit and wait. Not financial advice. I hope you've enjoyed the content from Chart Nerd TA. Take care. Peace out.